Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, you've given us some really interesting material, and we're going to plunge straight into uh, the fascinating world of retro video games,
Mm.
specifically the hunt for those incredibly rare cartridges.
Right.
Our mission is to extract the most intriguing insights for you. We'll be exploring what makes a game rare, shining a spotlight on some of the most sought-after titles, navigating where these treasures might be hiding, and the potential pitfalls, you know.
Definitely pitfalls.
Sharing some unbelievable discovery stories, and even touching on, well, the trickier aspects of collecting.
Exactly. The source you provided is a podcast script from a show called Retro Gaming Goldmine, The Hunt for the Rarest Cartridges, featuring hosts Alex and Jamie. We'll be drawing on their conversation to, give you a clear picture of this captivating pursuit.
And for you, as someone who enjoys getting a solid grasp of a topic quickly and thoroughly, this deep dive is designed to be an engaging exploration of retro game rarity and collecting. We're aiming for those aha moments and surprising facts without getting, like, bogged down in unnecessary details.
Mm.
Okay, let's unpack this. What are the core elements that elevate a retro video game cartridge to, well, rare status?
Well, a fundamental thing in collectible markets is scarcity, right? Whether it's like intentional or accidental limited production runs. Like the Nintendo World Championships Gold, that was competition exclusive. That immediately makes it aspirational, inherently valuable.
Limited numbers.
But it's not just about how many were made initially. Games that develop a dedicated fan base, a cult following over time, they can also become rare because, well, demand keeps going up, but the supply is fixed. Think of those games that maybe, flew under the radar at first, but got appreciated later.
That makes perfect sense. So it's not just initial numbers, but also that ongoing desire from players. The source also mentioned games tied to unusual history. That sounds intriguing.
Yeah.
Beyond just limited numbers, how do these unique backstories contribute to a game's allure and value for collectors, do you think?
That's a great question. These unusual histories, they often create a kind of narrative around the game, adding to its mystique. It could be licensing issues that meant a game got pulled, or changes in publishers mid-release, or even games made just for specific events. The story behind the game becomes part of its appeal. It's more than just plastic and code then.
Like they mentioned Action 52, the glitchy mess that was pulled from shelves. It's fascinating how something notorious can become a prized possession.
Precisely. Games that were recalled, for whatever reason, suddenly there's a finite number out there, instantly boosts their rarity. The controversy, or just the fact they were seen as, well, bad at one point, can ironically make them highly desirable later. It's a funny dynamic in collecting.
It is, almost counterintuitive. Now, they drew an interesting parallel to Pokemon cards. What was the key connection there?
The comparison really highlights that fundamental drive behind collecting, doesn't it? The desire to, complete a set, to own something others might not have, and the importance of condition. Just like keeping a rare trading card pristine, retro collectors value cartridges in excellent shape. Alex even joked about, the old ritual of blowing into cartridges, which is a very real memory for a lot of us.
Okay, so we've got limited production, the power of a dedicated fan base, unique historical circumstances, and even being a bad game that got recalled. That can all make it rare.
Yeah.
Now let's move on to the really exciting part. The legends, the games that truly break the bank. What are some of these mythical creatures?
Well, right at the absolute pinnacle, you've got the Nintendo World Championships 1990 Gold cartridge. Because it was exclusively made for participants and winners of that competition, the numbers were just incredibly limited from day one. Alex mentioned a reported value around $100,000 for one.
Wow.
It's not just a game, it's like a tangible piece of a huge moment in gaming history.
$100,000 for a single video game cartridge. It's hard to even, well, wrap your head around it.
Yeah.
What makes it command that price beyond just the tiny quantity?
Well, its direct link to a major Nintendo event really elevates its status. Its memorabilia with the verifiable history and, very few known to exist. That combination scarcity, historical significance, and desirability among really serious collectors, that drives the price way up there.
Absolutely. So what else is in this ultra-rare stratosphere? They mentioned a fitness game that's apparently worth more than just spare change.
Yes, stadium events for the NES. This game, it used the Power Pad accessory. It had a very brief original release before Nintendo rebranded it as World Class Track Meet.
Oh.
So that initial stadium events version is incredibly scarce. Jimmy even joked it could be worth a down payment on a house. The quick rebrand basically erased it from the market early on, making any surviving copies just exceptionally valuable.
A down payment on a house, that really paints a picture, doesn't it? It's amazing how a seemingly minor marketing choice can have such a huge ripple effect later.
Totally.
And then there was a platformer they mentioned. Not quite six figures, but still highly sought after.
That would be Little Samson for the NES. Alex described it as a really visually impressive platformer, but it had a tiny print run. So while it's not hitting World Championships or stadium events levels, it can still fetch upwards of $2,000.
$2,000.
Yeah, making it a significant and coveted item for serious NES collectors. Its quality gameplay combined with those low production numbers, it's been a target for a long time.
Over $2,000 for one game. It really underscores the passion and maybe the investment within this collecting community. So for you, the listener, if all this talk of rare games has piqued your interest, where might one actually, stumble upon these hidden treasures? Where's this hidden gold potentially located?
Well, the source material points to a few classic hunting grounds. Flea markets, garage sales.
Yeah.
They're often mentioned as places where you might find someone who just doesn't know the value of what they have.
Right.
Alex shared a great story about finding a copy of Earthbound that's a highly acclaimed RPG in a $5 bin at a sale like that.
Yeah.
Those kinds of finds, while rare, they're part of the, romantic appeal of retro hunting.
That's the dream scenario, isn't it? The ultimate unexpected bargain. But those stories feel a bit like, lightning striking. What about more established, though potentially pricier, ways to find rare games?
eBay is, while undoubtedly a major online marketplace for retro games, huge selection. However, Jamie wisely cautioned about inflated prices and what they called scalpers. Alex echoed this, mentioning seeing common games like Super Mario Duck Hunt listed for just ridiculous prices. It really emphasizes the need to do your research, Don't make impulse buys.
So eBay offers a vast inventory, but definitely needs a discerning eye and a solid grasp of market values to avoid getting ripped off. What about actual physical stores, the ones specializing in retro games?
Yeah, local retro game shops are highlighted as a really valuable resource. The host suggested that building relationships with the owners and staff can be super beneficial.
Makes sense.
These shops often get rare items traded in that might not hit eBay right away, and they can also offer expertise, maybe help authenticate stuff.
Right, it's about connecting with knowledgeable people in the community. And then there was that funny suggestion about bribing one of the podcast hosts with pizza for tips.
Yeah.
While we can't quite offer that here, it does speak to the idea that personal connections, a bit of networking, can sometimes lead you to hidden gems.
Exactly. It underscores the social and sometimes just lucky nature of the hunt. Now let's dive into a really captivating story of discovery they shared. The Great Atlantis II heist. The name itself sounds pretty dramatic.
Yes. I was really intrigued by this one. Set the stage for us. What's so special about this Atlantis II game that it warrants such a, dramatic title?
So Atlantis II is described as a harder version of the game Defender of the Crown. What makes it exceptionally rare is that it was specifically made for a contest. Extremely limited copies ever produced. It wasn't sold in stores, which just ramps up the scarcity.
A contest-only game. That immediately sends the rarity factor through the roof.
So how did this incredibly elusive game finally surface? Where did it come from? The story, as Alex told it, is pretty amazing. A friend of his apparently stumbled upon a copy at a thrift store.
No way.
And here's the kicker. It was inside a box labeled kids' clothes. The buyer picked it up for just a few dollars, completely unaware of what it actually was.
You're kidding me.
Yeah.
Imagine the shock later, realizing what was in that box. What happened next? Did they immediately cash in? Put it up for auction?
Well, the game was reportedly sold for a significant sum, around $13,000, I think they said.
$13,000.
Yeah, but then the story takes this wonderful, unexpected turn. The buyer ultimately chose to donate this incredibly rare cartridge to a gaming museum.
Wow.
Yeah, ensuring it would be preserved and others could appreciate this genuine piece of gaming history.
That's an incredible act of generosity. It really highlights that for many in this community, the passion goes beyond just the money, doesn't it? It's about preservation, sharing the history.
Absolutely.
But as with anything valuable, there can be a less savory side. What are some of the scams and counterfeit cartridges collectors need to watch out for?
The source material rightly raises concerns about counterfeit or reproduction cartridges. Unfortunately, they're a big issue in the retro market. These are fakes designed to trick buyers into thinking they're getting the real rare deal.
That's a real danger, especially for people new to the hobby. What are some key signs or tips for spotting these fakes?
Alex and Jamie gave some useful guidelines. One important thing is to really scrutinize the label quality. Authentic labels usually have sharp, clear printing, specific details. Fakes often look blurry or just off.
Okay, check the label.
Another crucial check, if you're comfortable doing it, is to actually open the cartridge and look at the board inside. Legitimate Nintendo cartridges, for instance, often have the Nintendo seal clearly visible right on the circuit board. Fakes usually won't.
That's a great tip, looking inside for that official mark. They also mentioned a slightly less scientific test, didn't they?
Yeah, a more lighthearted suggestion was to gently shake the cartridge. The idea is a genuine, properly made cartridge shouldn't have bits rattling around loose inside. It's not foolproof, but sometimes a rattle can indicate a cheap reproduction.
And finally, some common sense advice about the sellers themselves.
Exactly. The hosts humorously warned about sellers with really generic or maybe suspicious sounding names. It's always smart to, check seller feedback if you can, do your homework, and just have a healthy dose of skepticism, especially when big money is involved.
Solid advice. So, moving beyond the thrill of the hunt and the potential financial stuff, what are the deeper motivations? What really fuels this passion for collecting retro games? What drives the community?
Well, the source material touches on several key things. Nostalgia is huge, undoubtedly. Many collectors are trying to reconnect with games they played and loved as kids. It's a really powerful emotional link, right?
Absolutely. That connection to the games of our past.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people feel that.
And beyond nostalgia, there's just the inherent excitement of the chase itself, that thrill of maybe finding something rare and valuable. And of course, the simple joy of actually playing these old games again is a big motivator too. It's not always just about owning, it's about experiencing them.
So both ownership and experience. What about the social side of collecting?
Community plays a massive role. You've got retro gaming conventions, online forums, social media groups. They're all places for collectors to connect, share what they've found, share knowledge, and just talk. Even have friendly debates about game lore, like Alex and Jamie mentioned. It's a shared passion that builds a strong sense of belonging.
It sounds like a very engaged and supportive community. And finally, they touched on the idea of preservation.
Yes, many collectors really see themselves as kind of custodians of gaming history. They view these physical cartridges as important artifacts that need to be saved for future generations to appreciate and, maybe even study. It's a sense of responsibility towards gaming heritage.
So to recap our deep dive into this captivating world of rare retro games, we've explored the different factors that make a game rare: limited runs, fan bases, unique histories, even being a famous failure.
Right.
We've marveled at legends like the Nintendo World Championships, Gold Cartridge, and stadium events, which fetch staggering prices. We've discussed where to hunt, from lucky flea market finds to the riskier online world, and the value of local shops.
We also heard that incredible Atlantis the Second story, the thrill of the find and the generosity behind it. And importantly, we covered the pitfalls, watching out for scams and fakes.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, we looked at why people do it. Nostalgia, the fun of the hunt, the joy of playing, community, and preservation. You should now have a pretty comprehensive picture of this fascinating corner of gaming history.
Hopefully this deep dive has indeed sparked your curiosity and provided those aha moments we aimed for. You've gained insights into a unique form of collecting that mixes history, nostalgia, and a fair bit of detective work.
Which leads to a compelling final thought for you. Considering the deep passion and, frankly, the serious value now tied to these physical game cartridges from the past, what might future generations collect and cherish from our current, mostly digital entertainment landscape? Will digital scarcity ever truly hold the same tangible allure as these physical relics? It's certainly something interesting to think about.